horrific tragedy unfolded in February of 2023, a story that would shatter a family, expose a predator, and send shockwaves through the entire nation. This is not just a story of a crime, it is a story of profound betrayal, where the very person entrusted with the safety and development of young minds became the agent of their destruction. It is the case of Esmeralda Richies, a 16-year-old girl whose bright future was brutally extinguished by the man she was taught to call Professor. Esmeralda Richies was born on August 23, 2006, in the province of La Altagracia. She was the daughter of restaurant owners Alio Richies and Isabel Martinez, and grew up in what was described as a complete and happy family, close with her older sister. By all accounts, Esmeralda was a radiant, cheerful, and artistic teenager. She loved to sing, to dance, and had a natural charisma that she proudly displayed in videos on her social media profiles. In 2023, she was in her senior year of high school, on the cusp of adulthood, with plans to attend university. Her cheerfulness attracted a wide circle of friends, a fact that would tragically play a role in her demise. She was, by every definition, a young woman full of life and potential. In stark contrast to his victim stood John Kelly Martinez, a 35-year-old math and physical education teacher. He had recently entered the public education system after passing a competitive exam and was still in his one-year probationary period. To his students, he presented himself as the cool teacher, friendly, approachable, and unlike the more authoritarian figures they were used to, he treated them like friends, organizing outings outside of school hours. This behavior, however, masked a deeply troubling reality. Despite being a married man, his wife, J.C. Espinal Reyes, was also a teacher and a father to 2 young daughters. He devoted an inordinate amount of his free time to his students, particularly the bright and beautiful female ones like Esmeralda. For a long time, he painstakingly built a facade of trust, grooming them and disposing them to him, blurring the critical lines between educator and friend. The events of Sunday, February 12th, began like any other seemingly innocent outing. John Kelly, along with his cousin, Ruben Murillo Martinez, planned to pick up a group of female students. Esmeralda was the last to be collected. In a moment that would forever haunt her parents, John Kelly actually entered the family home, introduced himself to Esmeralda's mother as her teacher, and personally vouched for her safety, promising a fun evening and a safe return. Reassured by his position of authority, Isabel Martinez gave her permission. The group, consisting of the 2 grown men and 3 young girls, then set off in John Kelly's black Honda Accord. The plan, as told to the parents, was to go to a local fair. However, once in the car, John Kelly changed the destination. He, instead, drove them to the secluded Maimon Beach on the Azure coast. The choice of location was telling. The beach was practically deserted in the evening, a place for rendezvous and solitude, not a crowded fair. On the way, he stopped at a store to buy beer. Upon returning to the car, he asked his cousin to move to the back seat, ensuring Esmeralda was alone beside him in the front. He then produced a thermos, poured the beer into it, and, as one of the other students would later provide a stunning testimony, slipped 5 unknown pills into the drink. He offered this spiked concoction to Esmeralda without informing her of its contents. Upon arriving at the dark, deserted beach, the 3 other girls got out of the car. John Kelly and Esmeralda remained inside. For approximately 30 minutes, they were alone. Their prolonged absence did not go unnoticed by Esmeralda's friends waiting outside. When John Kelly finally emerged, he was abrupt, telling everyone to get back in the car immediately as they were leaving. It was at this moment that the nightmare began to unfold. Shortly after driving away, Esmeralda began to feel violently ill. She was bleeding, and it was not a slow trickle. It was a severe, life-threatening hemorrhage. What followed was not a rush to the hospital, but a desperate and calculated cover-up. Over the next hour and a half, John Kelly's actions demonstrated a clear priority, avoiding responsibility over saving a life. They were forced to make several stops, each one captured by surveillance cameras and witness testimony, that would later become crucial evidence for the prosecution. Their first major stop was around 9:45 p.m. at a gas station parking lot. Esmeralda, now terrified and in obvious distress, went to the restroom with her friends. Inside, a horrifying scene awaited them. Her clothes were completely soaked through with blood. There was so much blood that the girls themselves had to attempt to mop the floor clean. The friends, now panicked, approached a female employee at the gas station, asking if such bleeding was normal. The woman was unequivocal. It was not normal, and the girl needed to see a doctor immediately. They relayed this urgent advice to John Kelly. His response was chilling and definitive. He refused to go to the hospital, stating plainly, "If I do, I will go to jail." Later, at 10:21 p.m., they stopped at a pharmacy. Here, John Kelly purchased medication, water, and sanitary pads. Further attempts to manage the catastrophic bleeding rather than seek professional medical help. It was also established that at one of these stops, Esmeralda had to completely change her clothes because her own were drenched in blood. Finally, around 11 p.m., John Kelly delivered a critically injured Esmeralda to her doorstep and drove away. The tragedy deepened within the walls of Esmeralda's home. Her parents noticed she was bleeding heavily, but, tragically, and misled by the context of an evening out with friends, assumed it was an unusually severe menstrual cycle. Her mother, Isabel, with no reason to suspect a violent sexual assault, did what she thought was best. She gave her daughter a painkiller to help her sleep and alleviate the discomfort. This well-intentioned act had fatal consequences. In the early hours of the morning, Esmeralda, knowing something was terribly wrong, sent a desperate audio message to one of her friends from the bathroom. The message was a plea. "Please help me, I'm bleeding." But it was too late. Her friend did not hear the message until the next day. Esmeralda Richies succumbed to her injuries alone on the bathroom floor, lying in a pool of her own blood. The next morning, February 13th, met with silence from her daughter's room. Isabel Martinez went to check on her. She was met with a scene of unthinkable horror. The bed was flooded with blood, and on the bathroom floor lay her daughter, lifeless. The police were called, and the body was taken to the National Institute of Forensic Sciences for an autopsy. The initial findings were shocking. The death was ruled a homicide caused by a perineal laceration with severe internal bleeding and hemorrhagic shock, injuries consistent with a brutal and violent physical assault. The official classification was a violent death of undetermined cause, which only fueled intense public speculation in a country where abortion is banned. Rumors swirled that she had died from an abortion pill overdose, a theory that, while initially plausible, would later be disproven. The investigation quickly zeroed in on John Kelly. Interviews with the other girls revealed the truth about the spiked drink and the prolonged isolation in the car. A review of the students' phones uncovered a history of text messages showing the teacher's inappropriate long-term interest in Esmeralda. The timeline from the surveillance footage at the gas station and pharmacy painted a damning picture of his refusal to seek help. On February 14th, John Kelly Martinez was arrested. A search of his home led to the seizure of the clothes he wore that night. His cousin, Ruben Murillo, was also arrested and accused of being an accomplice, specifically for attempting to hide John Kelly's bloody pants. The investigation faced obstacles. The car, the potential crime scene, had been hastily sold by John Kelly's wife in what investigators believed was a blatant attempt to destroy evidence. Though it was eventually recovered and examined, forensic analysis only found traces of Esmeralda's blood, but no other definitive physical evidence. The prosecutor's office, building an overwhelming case based on witness testimony and circumstantial evidence, requested preventive detention for both men. John Kelly was suspended from his teaching position without pay. The legal process that followed was protracted, with several delays due to weather and procedural issues. Finally, the case proceeded to trial. The prosecution presented a massive case file with over 40 pieces of evidence, including the shocking witness testimonies, the forensic autopsy report, the toxicology results, which confirmed the presence of misoprostol, a drug used to terminate pregnancies, in her system, and all the CCTV evidence tracing their fateful journey. John Kelly Martinez's defense was predictably bleak. His attorney argued that he could only be charged with violence, not murder, and shockingly attempted to shift blame onto Esmeralda's parents for not recognizing the severity of her condition and taking her to the hospital themselves. In his own closing statement, John Kelly admitted to being close with Esmeralda in the car, but maintained it was consensual. He cynically pointed out that he had returned her home alive, a statement that ignored the mortal injuries he had inflicted, and his active prevention of her receiving medical care. The court was unmoved. On March 14, 2024, the judge handed down the verdict. John Kelly Martinez was found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in prison for the violent death of Esmeralda Richiez. He was remanded to the Anamuya Correctional and Rehabilitation Center to serve his term. His cousin, Ruben Murillo Martinez, was convicted as an accessory after the fact and received a conditional sentence requiring periodic court appearances. The family's attorney stated they were satisfied with the verdict and would not seek to reopen the investigation. The sentencing brought a measure of judicial closure, but it could never heal the wound left on Esmeralda's family. Her mother's words echoed the guilt and regret that would linger forever. I talked to him on the phone and asked, "Are you a teacher?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I told him, "Take care of my daughter." I was innocent that my daughter was with this man. The Ministry of Education offered support to the families involved and expressed a hope that such a tragedy would never be repeated. The story of Esmeralda Richiez is a devastating, multi-layered tragedy. It is about a predator who abused his authority. It is about a young girl who, like many teenagers, was likely afraid to confess a terrifying situation to her parents for fear of getting in trouble or being misunderstood. It is about the series of small, negligent decisions that culminated in an irreversible outcome. And most of all, it is a permanent warning about the dangers that can lurk behind the most trusted faces and the devastating price that is paid when fear wins over the plea for help. Her story is a chilling reminder that true evil doesn't always announce itself with a roar. Sometimes it whispers from the front of the classroom, offering a ride to the beach. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share the video, and there are many shocking stories ahead of you.